Hey there, in today's video, I am just doing a quick demo on using a scratching or mark making tool into light paint that has been painted over dark paint and dark paint that has been painted over light paint. I hope that makes sense. Tongue twister there. But I just wanted to show you because I've been kind of doing a little bit more of that, and a lot of you probably already do mark making in that respect, scratching back into paint. But I just thought I'd say, hey, why don't you give this a try if it's something that you have forgotten about or haven't ever done before, or have done in the past but then have kind of forgotten about. So, and a lot of times that's like any technique. We do it and then we kind of forget about it, and then someone reminds us and then we do it again. So anyway, it's a very simple technique, and I think it's one that's a lot of fun to do, and there's no right or wrong way. And so anyway, without further ado, let's get started. To get started, I'm just going to work in a vintage book that I have turned into an art journal, and I'm going to use, I just chose a dark paint and a light paint. It could be black and white, it could be light pink and brown, whatever dark and light that you want to use to start with. So I'm using Payne's Gray and Naples Yellow Hue. Like I said, it could be anything. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the light color, and I'm going to put it at the bottom because the next coat I'm going to put dark and light. So I'm going to do the opposite of what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to randomly make maybe my horizon line up here. Doesn't have to be. I don't like using the middle of the page. So I'm just going to start. And I want to put my paint on kind of thick because I'm going to scratch into it, and I don't care if I go above that line. So I'm going to paint. It looks like I'm going to need more paint. And it doesn't matter to me if it's not smooth either. So I like, for this kind of thing, I like thick paint. I like it to be, not necessarily an even coat. I guess what I mean is if there's ridges and things in it, I'm fine with that. So I'm just going to cover this entire part, and it looks like I'm gonna need more paint. So, and I have not gessoed these pages. You could, then it wouldn't soak up the paint quite as much, and so that's what's happening here is there's no gesso, and so the paper is old and thirsty. It likes to take all the paint. And again, you wouldn't have to cover every bit of it, but for the sake of example, I'm going to show you because I really like texture and scraping back. Oh, really going for it. Got it all over the place here. And you could, to protect your pages, and a lot of times I do, I'll show you. I grab deli paper like this, and I just have a box of it, and I could put it underneath, and that would protect it from getting on the other pages. So, and typically working in my art journal, I don't really care, but sometimes I do. Yeah, I can care sometimes. All right, so we're just about done with this. And like I said, I'm putting it on pretty thick. There's a lot of texture in it, but I want to scrape back. So let's get that last little bit there. So I want to make sure I have something that I can, when I scrape back, that the paint adheres. I'm not just scratching back onto the plain paper, although you could do that. And I can see it on camera. This looks extremely bright. The yellow is not that bright. So it's actually kind of a duller yellow, but in the light, my lights are probably on a little too bright. So now I'm going to take the darker one. I'm going to coat the top, and that Payne's Gray does look pretty much like black, but it's not. So we're going to cover this whole part, and then I just got to pause and let this dry. You could use a heat gun to do that. I probably will just let it dry naturally, but you can do that to speed up the process. So here we go. And again, you could work on just a piece of paper or a regular journal, whatever you like to do your practice things in. And I'm going to kind of, I'm putting my arm in the way of the camera. I'm going to cross that line a little bit just so that it's all covered. There we go. Okay, so that was step one. And you could do kind of scrape into it now, and you would have that book texture underneath. But I want to show you how I kind of do it with 2 layers. And so we're going to let this dry, and then I'll come right back. This page is pretty much dry. I think there might be a few wet spots. I painted the yellow pretty thick. So I decided to put a piece of deli paper under both sides just to kind of protect the surface and the pages underneath, even though that's something I don't always do, but I thought I'd start there. And I decided instead of changing up the colors, which was my original thought, I think I'm just going to stay with the color palette that I have, and I'm going to paint the opposite. So I'm going to paint dark down here and light up here on top of this, and then I'm going to scrape into it. But I did add a little bit of white because I want to change the colors a little bit. Typically, I would not paint straight out of a tube like I did here, though that's not my normal way of painting. And so what I thought I would do is change up this color a little bit, because this Payne's Gray really does, depending on the brand you use, it really does look black. Until you mix it with a little bit of other color, then you can see the blue that comes out in it. So I have, because my paint was sitting here while this dried, I added a little bit of water to it and my brushes just to kind of keep them moist while I, waited for it to dry. So, and then I added a little bit more paint to it. So, and like I said, I like a little bit of variety. So I have some white paint here. I'm going to just grab a little bit of it and add it in, a little bit more maybe, and you could certainly do this with a palette knife. I'm also going to grab a little bit of the yellow. Maybe I should squirt that yellow on over here rather than mess up my yellow, because I probably will add a little bit to that as well. And if I don't like the color as I'm mixing, oh, that's going to turn that into kind of a green. You can see that the blue that was so dominant is not so dominant anymore. So I'm going to add a little bit more Payne's Gray. So this is how I do color mixing. I just kind of go for it. And a lot of people say it's kind of scary, but I feel like even if I stayed with that kind of greenish color, which is I could have, and I actually like that, but I'm trying to get a darker value here so I can show you some of this kind of scraping technique that I'm going to do. And so this is perfectly fine. This is kind of more of a gray, and I like that grayish green. And my paint brush is super loaded. I'm going to grab a palette knife and I'm going to scrape that off. A lot of times it is, it's probably smarter to mix your paint with a palette knife, but I get lazy and I just kind of paint it straight on the brush. Plus, what I do like about that is some of the irregularities I get when I mix that way. The paint is not fully mixed all the time, and so I get some irregularities when I paint it on the page. Okay, so I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna paint the dark over the light, and hopefully I have enough here. I think I can make it work, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Again, it's just we're working in our art journals, so again, nothing has to be perfect, but I really like the texture, and when you scrape through, you can get some really cool effects. So I like that. Okay, so I am starting to run out, but that's okay. It can be slightly different colors, shades down here. Okay, and if a little bit pops through, kind of like this, I like that too. So here we go. Okay, I'm gonna get this last little bit here down at the bottom. And I'm trying to stay out of the camera so you can see this. But I do like some of that popping through. But I want to make sure that it's thick enough so when I do scrape through, you can see what I'm doing, what I'm talking about. Okay, so for the yellow up at the top, I'm going to grab a little bit of the white, and I'll just pull that all right in right there. So I want it to be slightly different, not exactly the same color. I just think it's so much more interesting if you add multiple colors together. Even if you just add a tiny bit, it's amazing how much richer or more interesting the color becomes. And yes, you can get mud, but as most of you guys probably know, I actually kind of like mud. So for me, you just with that mud, you add a richer color next to it, and it can become really beautiful, those muddy colors. So, but again, personal preference, and not everybody, a lot of people are drawn to bright colors. So you could, and this yellow is pretty bright now that I added the white to it. So you could certainly, like I said before, do this in whatever colors you have or what other colors are speaking to you right now. So, okay, so I have my paint on here. And it's still wet, and this is important that it's slightly wet. Otherwise, when you scrape into it, if it's dry, it's not going to work. So a lot of times what I like to do is I just have this is like a pottery tool. I don't know what they do. Maybe they carve into their pottery, their pottery when they use it. Maybe those of you who do pottery know. But I find them great for mark making, and I have a whole bin just full of them. I buy them like in a little set of 7 or 8 pieces. So these are great. And there's all different kinds of nibs, and I mean, they come in different ways. So highly recommend. But if you have a skewer or just a pencil will work as well. And often I use those things too. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to loosely, get my hand loose and make some circular shapes because those are shapes that I'm really drawn to. So now of course I get nervous when I'm on camera. So, and I like to go around a couple times. I'm gonna make, I guess I'll make like 3 shapes. Let's see, maybe I'll make a kind of something longer or more wonky. And then one here in the middle. Don't want it to be exactly the same. And that one is very wonky, but again, I don't mind that. So as you can see here, the paint is starting to dry. It's a little bit thinner through here. Right there, the paint was drying. So the key to this, depending on how textured you want it to be, is to do it quick enough that, or do the paint thick enough so that you have plenty of time to do this. So to me, this is the perfect result because I don't want it to be perfect. And the parts that don't show through to me are as exciting as the parts that do show through. So another thing that I like to do, and I'm just gonna show you, is I like to make, I'm gonna try to hold on to this page while I'm doing it, is I like to make little marks. So you can do, these are just simple tick marks. Let's see. I feel like I need to hold the paper, but let's see. I think I can do it just kind of wonky. So, and again, some of the paint is starting to dry. So it like right there, no, it doesn't show through at all. And you wouldn't have to go down all the way, but you could just do as many as you like. But I think it's kind of fun and it adds, and if I was doing this off camera, I would be holding the paper a little bit tighter. So it's not quite as wobbly as what I'm doing now. So, okay. And you can see where the paint has dried and where it hasn't. And if it's too much, you can take like a catalyst wedge or a credit card or something and scrape it back through like this so it softens, so it's not as many, you don't see all of that. So obviously I'm not doing that very well right there. And then like, okay, over here, maybe I'm gonna do this one because it'll be easier. The middle looks tricky. I'm just gonna do some things like this. And again, it's already starting to dry. So what I'm gonna get is not exact. Obviously the blue, or the mixture of the blue Payne's gray is brighter, and the yellow I did not put on quite as thick. And so then here, maybe I just make some marks like, and this is not showing up at all. So obviously it's already dry. So again, you just have to work quickly I could stop. I could put another layer of paint and thicken it if I wanted, but you're getting the gist of it. So the idea is then if you want to make some marks, you can. So you can make your circles or your squares or whatever shape that you're really drawn to. And honestly, if I had done this, I would have thought it through a little bit more. The shapes are all too similar for me. I would have, I think one very thin, one maybe at more of an angle. This one is a little more, perpendicular, perfect. So I think the idea is kind of make them all different. Sets of 3 are always, fun to do. So you could have, the sizes could have varied a little bit more. But again, I think you're getting the gist that anytime you do a light over dark or dark over light and you scrape into it with a tool or whatever, mechanism you want to use, you can get this really fun effect. You could do flowers, you could do so many different things. I could continue to scrape down here if I wanted. I could do, whatever patterns I wanted to do all over. So, and again, if you didn't like it, then what do? You just paint right over the top of it and it's gone. So whatever you didn't like. And so that's the fun part is it's just being able to make these marks and then see what happens. And I think the unexpected result is always intriguing. I'm gonna kind of just go over lightly over these things I just did. But anyway, it's a very simple technique, but some people may not have known, just how much you can do just by scraping back into paint, not necessarily using, I guess, your tool as to draw. And again, you could draw a mug, you could be much more complex than what I'm doing. You could paint, you could sketch in a whole scene just by using this and adding paint and scraping back into it. So I think the possibilities are endless. And I hope that you, if this is something that you find fun or intriguing, that you will give it a try, because it is super easy to do. The hardest part is waiting for your paint to dry after the first layer. And you could, certainly, like I said, use it dryer or whatever to get that, to speed that process up. So with all that being said, I thank you so much for watching. And if you have any thoughts or comments, I would love to hear them in the comment section below. I just appreciate all of you for watching so much, and I will see you next time.